We're live. We are live. Well, Happy New Year to everyone that turned up. The rest of you, where the hell are you? Tracy, how are you? Happy New Year to you and your loved ones. Happy New Year to you as well. Pluripotent. Yes, you're a small little protoplasm. I hope your sort of New Year's resolution is to become a fully grown cell with, plans for the future, multicellular. G'day, Deborah. Happy New Year to you as well, and to your loved ones. And Johnny Wong, how are you, mate? Happy New Year to you as well, and to your family. Jay Ducky, how are you, Jay Ducky? Happy New Year to you, mate. And to your loved ones, if you've got any. Matthew. Ooh. Ooh. What not the point? The X. What not Matthew X. Anyway, me being facetious. Well, Happy New Year to you as well, mate. Yes, another year has come and gone. Well, nearly. Well, we're practically on the crust of a new year. Don't know what the new year's going to hold. It seems a very interesting sort of world that we're sort of getting into. Sort of the upheavals, but then again, it seems things are starting to calm down a bit. Hopefully, we get peace around the world in different parts of the world where a lot of people have been dying and there have been troubled areas. So hopefully 2025 is more peaceful than what the last couple of years have been. We'll see. Let's see if the gods of war basically will relent this year. But yeah, hard to say. Hard to say. Christina, how are you? And yes, in some parts of the world, it's the 30th. In Australasia, because we're on a globe, remember, and we're spinning around in space, we are basically the 31st. It's 10:30 in the morning in Hobart. New Year's Eve, 31st of December. Now, in your part of the world, it's in the evening. So yes, you've got another day to go for New Year's Eve. But because due to the vagaries of the way the planet operates, you're early. So, not my fault. Oh, yeah. Well, some do, but believe that. I think there's a little thing that just wobbles around in a circular thing. And there's some evil people and evil aliens in Antarctica. Yes, yes. Unfortunately, very crude experiments that everybody can do with their own body. And my ancestors did a very long time ago before NASA even existed, show that the Earth was round. And even in the Bible, it actually says that, I can't remember which was one of the prophets. I just can't remember the prophet. He was taken up into the heavens and he could see the Earth hanging there without a string. Because, we're talking about people with basic knowledge. Saw a circular Earth just hanging there and couldn't understand what he was actually viewing. So I'll go with that Bible story than basically the flat earthers. Um, so even though it's funny that a prophet saw that, and then for a long time the religion basically held to this sort of notion, and it was just basically because they, people did not understand a lot of things, and some of the knowledge got lost in the Middle Ages and stuff like that, especially in Europe. Um, because the knowledge had already existed. I can't remember who was the Greek scientist. It was a Greek scientist, and put he actually did a measurement in Alexandria, then went south to do another measurement to work out the curvature. And it wasn't too bad. It was quite close to what we get today. So it was pretty good. So anybody can do it. And, over the horizon, we know things go over the horizon. Many naval people that have served in the Navy know that. So, it's just, I do not understand the movement. Absolutely do not understand it. So many experiments, the average person can do to validate this. It just defies me anyway. But anyway, Happy New Year. Even though you're early. MPIKMS 72. Is that your classification? Is that your ID number? Shouldn't actually be transmitting that publicly. Happy New Year to you as well. Or is that your robot number? Okay. That's your classified robot number from the globalists. Okay, fair enough. To my dear lovely friends, Larry Finn, Bill Gates, and George Soros, I do hope they have a happy new year, sort of. Yes. Lovely people, absolutely lovely people. Humanitarians. They just want to see 90% of the population, go extinct, but lovely people otherwise, absolutely lovely people, you know. I'll do a Greta thing. How dare you actually criticize those lovely people? Yes, that's the sort of world we live. Seems that the crazies are slightly on hold. They've been put on a leash in America. Well, they will in a couple of how many days have we got to go? 20th, isn't it? So another 3 weeks nearly to go until the kids or the crazy kids are no longer in charge in the US. We just have the delinquent ones then coming in. I call Trump the delinquent one, but at least he's not. He's got a interesting personality, but at least he's not crazy like the rest of them. So you know, that's it. Whether he'll be able to bring some order to the place, hard to say. There's still a lot of crazies around in the world, a lot of crazies overseas in Europe and many other places. So these people aren't going to stop. You know, um, they're pushing for their 15-minute cities. They're pushing for all these sort of things. So while I do wish everyone a happy new year, at the same time, we need to be aware of these things and we need to be pushing back in our communities because as a New Year resolution, you should all basically say, I will do something to make the world a better and freer place. That should be your New Year's resolution. uh, Because the consequences of not having such a resolution is Ted will be sent over to basically do some very nefarious, nasty things. And you know how he enjoys that? According to the bald man in New Zealand, well, doesn't he have a lot of work to do on that farm? Bloody hell. He's, I think he's bitten off quite a bit, but he seems to be handling it. We'll see how long the honeymoon period lasts. as I told him. See, I come from, my background is from a bit of a rural family on both sides, and I know how rural life is hard. Tell you one thing, no thanks, personally. Um, but yes, live in 50-minute cities, being fed and monitored. I won't even know if I go demented. True, true. You can be on a tube, full service. I suspect you're looking forward to it in your older age. Just make sure that the standards, the cage is actually painted properly. Demand proper painting of the actual, nice pastel colours, obviously. Yes, yes. Our overlords like to do the authoritarian thing in a soft way, you know, softly, softly. They realised in the past they did it fast and it didn't work. So softly, softly, like they do it in China, by increments, just take away. And before you know, you're in a cage and you go, okay, I feel like a bird. Big Master, eating, where's my Happy New Year, questions immediately? How dare you, as Greta would say? How dare you? Anyway, let's get on with the questions. Eating just grass-fed suet, ribeye, some organs, but not excessive, mostly in pill form. Oh, you get the desiccated ones, freeze-dried. Gotcha. Bone broth. Would we be getting enough vitamin E? Is this important online carny diet? Not really, no. You upregulate your intracellular antioxidant systems. So your vitamin C, your vitamin E come down considerably. If you're ever concerned about vitamin E, there is vitamin E it's a fat-soluble vitamin in animal foods, so you're going to get it. Obviously, some animal foods have more of it. So if you're looking at eggs and dairy, they'll have more in their fats. But at the end of the day, you actually get what is called a vitamin E complex with not only tocopherol but also tocotrienols. The little they embed into cells at different to different levels. So there's all these, and they're electron donors, no different than vitamin C. The only difference is that in a low carbohydrate state, you're also, and you're eating enough animal foods, you're providing the precursors to basically produce sufficient glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and catalase. And by producing those things, what you're doing is by upregulating naturally in a low carbohydrate state, the intracellular antioxidant system, that a sugar diet does the complete opposite. Then you do need exogenous. You still, even if you're eating enough protein, you should be getting some intracellular, but not to the same level as in a low carb state. Then you basically are able to recycle the vitamin C and recycle the actual vitamin E as well. So pretty much what, let's say, the vitamin E component, tocotrienol provides an electron. Well, it becomes unstable. Like vitamin C becomes unstable and the body, when it doesn't have enough, you know, electrons to provide the actual vitamin C, as an example, what it does is it's forced to excrete out, because it's done its job. So it's given the electron as a donor. Now it needs to get rid of it, so it turns it into oxalate and dumps it out. So that's what happens to to vitamin C. But if you've got an upregulated intracellular antioxidant system, then what it does is, and you've got a smaller amount, you're not taxing the system, and so those few, that smaller amount can actually then be given an electron by glutathione, which then we call it recycling of vitamin C and vitamin E, and it stabilizes it, so it can do its job again. And you're also in a much more lower oxidative stress state, so you need less of it as a consequence of the diet as well and the lifestyle. Now, if you're earthing yourself like a lot of the tribal people do and all that, and you can actually buy yourself now, they even sell like walkable earthing socks, so people can buy those and just walk around with those and earth themselves. That's additional electrons you're getting from the earth, let alone the negative charge, which actually allows for things not to aggregate in your bloodstream, which is really good, lowers clotting levels and stuff like that, and aggregation of, the molecules that actually, all the stuff that the lipoproteins, all the stuff that sort of moves through the bloodstream. But on top of that, it also is adding additional electrons to the body, which we always are losing. So there's always a sort of a more proton and this also affects, energy production in the system. So sort of what we call, the potential of the electron chain. So, or redox potential, as it's called in the scientific terms. So for us, it's really having the diet is the key thing that actually allows all these things to work in the proper way, is what I'm trying to say. So you don't need any special supplementation. Multicellular, it is. Well, there you go. You've got your New Year's resolution. What do you think of sound healing, like Tibetan singing bells? And apparently, studies show that reduced blood pressure when should be singing those things every day. Well, actually, it's the same thing with the sort of orthodox chanting and stuff like that. That also has similar things. There are breathing, like sort of breathing exercise and stuff like that that also do that. So which affects the parasympathetic. So all these things can be useful. There is music that also has like this sort of calming effect. You can take taurine to lower your cortisol levels and to also increase GABA ray and reduce stress as well. But yeah, look, definitely things like this do help. These are lifestyle things, lifestyle earthing, breathing properly and exercise of that sort. All these things have a benefit from what we've actually seen. So, but ultimately, the diet is going to be the most important thing, because if you don't get that right, everything else doesn't work, because you're going to be adding so much oxidative stress, so much damage. These things have like minor benefit. There's multiple populations like the Maasai that don't do any of this, and they live to well over in the 120s, as Mary Ruddock that I've interviewed in the past, and she's actually gone and seen these people and taken ketones and all sorts of things, blood sugar levels and whatever. So it's quite clear that we don't need any of this. But is it beneficial? Yeah, if it doesn't hurt and you've got the time and you want to dedicate, I wouldn't get religious about it, crazy that I have to do it every day, but doing it occasionally. I do breathing exercise occasionally, sort of mindful thinking or just calming down in my own skin. I do things like that. I earth myself and all that, but you don't have to go crazy about all this, is what I'm trying to say. Get the key stuff right, sleep and diet, and most of the other stuff fall into place for most people. Thoughts on methylene blue? Is it safe to take long term? I don't believe so, personally. In excessive amounts, it can actually discolor your skin. Different people have different detox pathways, so different capacity to clear it out of the system, and it can bioaccumulate in some people with the wrong genes. So it's a hit and miss. The benefits, yes, it is a big electron donor, but a good lifestyle and earthing yourself can actually provide the same level of electron doning to reduce oxidative stress in the body. I don't think we need. There are certain conditions like toxic poisoning and certain things. There are certain conditions where this is used in the medical field, and I have no problems with that. But for the general public, I don't think it's really a necessity, personally speaking. But what you do is your body, your business. I'm just telling you what I wouldn't put that in my body. I have put it in the past. I did try it, but I wouldn't do it anymore. Anyway, Jenny, where's my Happy New Year, Jenny? Anyway, which diet is the best for cancer? Does it depend on the type of cancer, and is it the level of ketones important? Ketones are unimportant. Most things are unimportant. The question, what causes cancer? And I think I've actually covered this extensively. I think you have probably heard I do have a whole playlist on cancer. What is it? We know quite clearly from experiments that have been done, it is reducing the actual ability for the cell to produce through oxidative phosphorylation, which is pretty much using oxygen to take, food, hydrogen ions. So your protons and your electrons through the electron chain, and the proton pumps and the ATPase that produce ATP, because that's the currency of energy. If you can't do that, then the body runs a whole lot of other programs to ferment things, create a whole lot of lactate. So it builds up a whole lot of lactate to produce. That's why we use taurine to suppress lactate production in the actual cells as a biohack in that regard. But the thing that actually causes it is the inability for the cell, and you've got a weakened immune system, so your immune system can't take out these cells, and then eventually these cells become cancerous and they take off. So it's a high deuterium diet that actually causes it in the problem primarily. Some viruses can, and the way they work is by interfering in the initial mechanisms for energy production and disallowing, because what they like to do, they like to manipulate the energy system and force the cell to produce more lactate. And that's another reason why it's good to suppress the ability for the replication of viruses with taurine, because having a good vitamin D level regulates the immune system, but taurine also suppresses the ability in the actual cell itself for the virus to take over the system and do its nefarious thing of producing a lot of lactate. It suppresses that whole mechanism, and which is a good thing, because then the virus can't compromise the cell sufficiently to force it into a different state of functioning, and then confuse the cell and think that I don't have energy, so I have to basically run this whole program. And usually the immune system, if you've got a healthy immune system, will eliminate those things, but the initial damage is going to be from that sort of stuff. So a species appropriate diet will give you sufficient taurine to suppress that capability and also prevent the virus from causing misfolding in the actual endoplasmic reticulum, that stuff which is around those folds around the actual nucleus. So all these things prevent the cell from really going deranged, and it will be from a species appropriate diet. On the other hand, the key thing for most cancers that are produced in the body is this, where you've got cells that have become senescent. That means their ability to produce ATP has been compromised due to high deuterium, and now the cell cannot function properly anymore, and there's too many of these senescent cells and a weak immune system at the same time. This combination of weak immune system and too many senescent cells eventually gives rise to cancer. So that's the mechanism, how it actually happens. And, and a species appropriate diet is the way to go to maintain the body, because you still need to keep the healthy cells in good nick. You can't compromise your body, but what you need to do is suppress those mechanisms and boost the immune system, because the immune system in the end kills off the cancer cells, and reducing the level of damage to the system is important. So you use deuterium depleted water and more animal fats that reduce the amount of deuterium in the system over time. By reducing the deuterium levels over time, the body is able to slowly start fighting off the remaining cancer cells. Many of the cancer cells can revert to a senescent state, because if the mitochondria start becoming healthy again, they send signals and say, we can work, we can produce ATP. So it downregulates the oncogenes. So the genes are not the drivers, but they're interacting with the mitochondria. So this is where the two groups have got it confused. It's both working together to push the cell into a cancerous state, but it's due to the initial damage that we do over years to the cells, and a poor immune system that can't clear those cells, that allows this thing. Obviously, a species appropriate diet is going to be the most appropriate, because that will heal the body, and you have to heal it and strengthen the immune system, and making sure you've got good vitamin D status to then be the body to be able to fight and clear out the cancer cells. It's like me with Dad, and his cancer, it's reduced. Why is it reduced? Because I keep him in a therapeutic level of vitamin D, between 175 and 200. Is 183 currently, was 187, I think, the previous one. It sort of has been a bit lower, 170 something. So, but I keep him in that therapeutic level, which you only need 5,000 IUs continuously all year round, because he doesn't really go out much in the sun. Well, he does, but usually in the early hours or afternoon for his garden, but he doesn't, in the regular hours, even in summer, to get sufficient, and he wears too much clothing. So that keeps his level at that level for him. And so for other people, that may be excessive all year round. I just do it. I still maintain good vitamin D levels just doing it in the winter, and the rest I just get out, being out in the sun in summer. But unlike today, at lunchtime I do have a break from you guys. But yeah, so really you want to build a stronger immune system and a stronger body, and you're only going to do that on a species appropriate diet, not on any other crappy. So yes, that's the way to go, with some of those biohacks to reduce the deuterium in your system, so the body can then start healing itself faster. Anyway, check out my cancer playlist. It's got a lot of information, and there's more to come this year, where we're going to go into much more details and all that. Shelley's here, and Richard's here. God, Kate, happy New Year to all of you guys, but I'll put you on the screen shortly. What are your thoughts on citrulline malate? Yep, I use it for vasodilation, and also, so yeah, because it goes to the kidneys, gets converted to basically arginine, and arginine then increases nitric oxide in the body. It's fine, I use it primarily in my biohacking as well, early in the morning. Less than 1 gram, about 0.9 of leucine, together with 3 grams of citrulline, is that biohack, the video that I still haven't made. Bad boy. Still forgot to bloody make that video, which, changes the way that chapter 1 and chapter 2 sort of pathways work, which then allow for this amplification of intracellular healing. So, Jenny, you should be doing that as well. Less than 1 gram, about, they say about up, researchers say up to 1.1, but I like to be 0.9. Just, not exactly like 1 gram of leucine in the morning, leucine, and 3 grams of citrulline, and just drink that down when you, just at the moment you wake up, and you've got a bit of time restricted feeding until cortisol's lower about 11 o'clock when you're going to have your first meal or break your time restricted feeding. You're going to get some amplification through that period of cellular improvements and stuff like that. Some people do it late at night, just before going to bed, and they've stopped eating, like 8 hours prior, because they've got a shorter time restricted feeding. So what they get is a longer period of this effect. So healing the actual cell itself. This is another way of improving cellular function. A bit of a biohack for those who want to use it. Okay, Healthy Jedi. How long do you think you can take to heal from pretty damaged colon, gut on a lion's diet? I'm 11 months and definitely way less pain, bloating, but stools are still mud-like. No sausage from form. LOL. It depends. It depends how much damage. You can actually accelerate the damage. Accelerate the healing by using something like BPC 157, and not the injectable type. That's for other injuries, but just using because you produce it in your gut and your stomach. This is a peptide that actually has healing abilities, because remember, your whole is like your whole digestive tract is like an outer skin, but it's also made like your skin from a lot of collagen. The BPC 157 has basically reparative qualities. There's also a supplement that Bart K actually sells, which is a collagen supplement, which has got certain peptides in it that also a lot of people have found improves their gut health much faster. So you could actually get something like that, BPC 157, do that for about, you usually do BPC 157 for about like 2 to 3 months. Then you stop it for about a similar amount, and then you do it for another 2 to 3 months, and that's it for the year. You don't want a lot of angiogenesis to new blood cells. Thank you. Thanks, Christina. Yeah, and that helps. You do it only twice a year for that period of time, and that helps with the healing process. Plus, adding, a collagen with certain peptides, like the one that Bart K would be useful for some people, depending on how much damage. They may just need the BPC and just the diet. So that I'll leave that up to you to decide. That's your health, your money, basically. But I'm just saying that all these things do help and have shown to help a number of other people. So both some of my subscribers and some of Bart's subscribers. So, also his stem cells seem to also help some people improve. I know Hello Kitty, she actually buys from Bart. She's my neighbour, and she's seen some improvements there as well. So anyway, even through we don't need vitamin E essentially on carnivore diets, like you said earlier, would you would we see any benefits from supplementing on top of a carnivore? Depends. It depends. Like if you've got a lot of stored, let's say you had a very high PUFA diet in the past from seed oils. So you've got now a lot of oxidative primary, secondary, and aldehydes potentially in your fat cells, some of this stuff. Well, as you do the turnover of your fat cells, you could be releasing some of these oxidants into your system, because it usually takes to turn over a lot of these cells about 7 odd years. In the past, what I did and what I've recommended, if people have been exposed to very high levels for many years, like decades or whatever, of these rancid oils, I do recommend people take a low dose vitamin E complex like Toco, which Jarrow, the company Jarrow, they've got a product called Toco, TOCO. You can Google it, and that I usually recommend to people for that condition as an electron donor to stabilize those fatty acids that are coming out into the system from your fat cells as you're utilizing, when you're not eating, you're utilizing the fat that you've stored that may be problematic in that regard. Also, for those people, I would recommend that they consider something like a low deuterium alpine water. You don't have to go very low deuterium water. That's only if you've got cancer and stuff like that. But you can still buy, alpine glacial water, which has a lowered, level of deuterium in it, like 132 to 136. You can actually find, which is way below the water or sugar, which is around the 150, 155. So obviously the toxic levels 180 and beyond. That's seed oil territory. And the between 100 and 130 is where we've got that sweet spot where animal foods are smack in the middle of 115, and things like DHA, EPA and all that about 102 approximately. I think one's 103 and the other one's 101. Depends on the fish. Anyway, confusing. Anyway, they're close to it. They average around 102 ppm, parts per million. So really that's the sort of stuff you're looking at. Oops. Thank you. Happy 2025 to Harry and all. Thanks, RF Bead 321. Thanks a lot, and Happy New Year to you as well. Thanks for the support, and to you and your family. I can do that now, can't I? Yes. Couldn't do it before for some reason. Look, your little heart there. They keep on improving these systems and changing the way they work, the functionality. So I have to play around with them. I'm always confused about these. Thanks again for your support. Richard, Happy New Year. Happy, Happy New Year Eve, Harry, and everyone. Thanks, mate. Bullet, hello from Wisconsin, USA. Another person living in the past on the 30th of this month. Thanks, mate. Meets Triple Z. Are you with a meat militia? Are you a special agent? My folate gets extremely low on lion diet. Have been taking methylfolate and perhaps seems to feel a bit better now. Would low folate cause HbA1c to be high? See red blood cell production messed up. It's probably you could be one of those people like me that had. There's about 24% of the population that have. I actually did a video called "Why Does Blood Sugar Go High on a Carnivore Diet?" For some people, it's because they have the genes. 24% of the population have these genes that actually means they require more calcium. And so if you don't get enough calcium on a lion's diet, you won't. What it does is it messes with a lot of these issues that have to do with red blood cells, blood sugar levels, so higher glycation. So you've got all these other issues that do happen due to those genetics. So you may have pastoral genes. I remember in the last, what is it, 9,000, we've got, depending on which part of the world you are, anywhere between 12 to 5,500 years of domestication of animals and plants. And so we have different adaptations, and those adaptations affect the way we operate. So if you've got pastoral genes like I have and 24% of the population has, then you don't absorb calcium as well. And calcium plays an important role in regulating blood sugar levels as well. So that's an important thing to consider. So a lion diet may not be compatible with your genes, is what I'm saying. You're not a Hadza. Got it? Your ancestors, due to domestication of animals and plants, have some genetic differences, and that's why you need to consider other options. Also, if you're eating, like dairy foods in particular, you'll get other things as well. You get a bit more choline. If you're eating eggs, you'll also get choline, quite a bit of choline in eggs and some of the organ meats, but you don't want to go too high on those and get into sort of hypervitaminosis sort of issues. But by eating eggs, you actually, and certain animal foods that have got higher levels of choline, the choline can actually play as it spares folate and spares B12 and spares B6 because it comes directly into the methionine cycle to deal with homocysteine. So you don't need as much on a carnivore diet as long as you're eating. And I have done a video that covers this. Just Google choline and Harry Serpanos and you'll find the information. And it covers these sort of things about methylation. So the lion diet may not be compatible for you, is what I'm saying, due to your genetics. So sort of consider making a bit of a shift to some other animal foods to be able to, because some populations can actually produce endogenously more intracellularly. They can produce more, basically within their own bodies. They can produce more choline. Others have a more requirement from diet. All these have to do with the type of domestication that happened, the area that they've lived in the world, and what their ancestry is. So there are a whole lot of variations. The Irish and the people from the UK in particular, that the population has more issues with, beta carotene and the conversion of carotenoids. They need more retinol from their diet, as an example, due to cod liver and things like that. That their ancestors consumed quite a bit in the past. So there's all these variations, and people need to consider their ancestral roots and potential genetics that come from those roots to make adjustments to their carnivore diet. Like I have, I've added more dairy into my because I need it, and I don't get tachycardia, I don't get any arrhythmias, I don't get any high blood sugars or anything like that and I was getting these sort of things on a paleo diet that I'd removed dairy. So I'm one of those that are even more sensitive because I've got a number of other calcium genes as well. Some just have the primary, but not all the calcium genes problems. I have quite a few of the problems, so I get the more extreme type of effect, where some people get the more moderate type of effect, where they have slightly elevated blood sugar, a few other things like that, but not severe. The moment they actually put dairy back in, they notice, just yogurt or cheese, or even getting sardines, which will give you the bones and will give you calcium. Once they get their calcium back to a certain level, immediately their blood sugars come down to more normal rates. So your HbA1c on a carnivore diet is going to be, on any low carb diet, is going to be slightly higher than the rest of the population. You're going to be in the upper limit to slightly over the upper limit. And that's normal because our cells, our red blood cells, survive longer. And so they can get more glycated over time. That's not a problem. As long as your blood sugars are normal, that's what you really need to check on a carnivore diet. Where are my blood sugar levels? Are they in the proper normal range or not? I'm forgetting my coffee, neglecting it. It's getting cold. Anyway, so those are the things to look at. Eggs. Oh, somebody's been listening. Good on you, Richard. Kate. Hey, has a natto? Has a Roni. Get it right. Hi all. Don't forget to like, please. Yes, definitely. Hit the like button. I actually call my computer Hazaroni as well. Heat. Whereas one of my dear beloved friends, she calls me Hazard. And back to another question. Family. My body won't let me eat anything other than ribeye, suet, bone broth, and some organs. LOL. Most parts. Seems like most other cuts, fish, all taste bad. Salmon tastes way too lean. Guess fat is king. Yeah. If that's what your body wants, that's what you give it. Listen to your body. That's self-explanatory. I think people need to be in a low-carb state and then listen to their body. I sometimes get urges where I want more fish because I need more DHA. And other times, I just do not want fish at all. So I just listen to my body to eat accordingly. This whole thing that I need to eat this and get this and that. God, you're going to stress yourself into an early grave doing that. Just eat try to stick to animal-based, to an animal food based diet as much as possible with very few, because I know we'll all cheat a bit, all indiscretions, in particular this period with family and all that, but try and keep most of the time to not doing too many indiscretions. And generally speaking, just listen to your body, and your body will tell you what it wants. It'll crave certain things, you know. If you've got a sugar addiction, that's a different thing. That's not the type of craving you want. That's probably bugs saying, I want more sugar. And then you have to go to a person like Pim Johnson, who's Bart's partner, and she helps a lot of people with cravings and things of addictions. You can actually check on my main page on my channel, right at the bottom where I've got all the channels that I support, and you'll find, Pim's there, and you can go directly and get her details and email her. She has also a support group as well, I believe, on Facebook, a support group. Anyway, Kate, yep, another message. I'll just put you guys up, just so you can see yourselves in lights, just for the hell of it. There you go. And that's enough of you guys. Hello, Shelley. And yes, Happy New Year to you as well. And Tom, not a question on human health, but do you have any thoughts on the ideal diet for a pet rat? Oh, that's an interesting one. Well, rats are omnivores, so they eat both they'll eat insects, they'll eat all sorts of things in their environment. They're pretty much grains, they'll pretty much eat. I wouldn't give them industrial seed oils, obviously. That's not going to be very healthy for them. But they're omnivorous, and they're pretty much adapted to eating generally little critters, and a number of things like they'll eat seeds, obviously, because they'll go into grain silos and stuff like that. Whether it's healthy for them, I don't know. Nobody really knows in that regard. But they will eat some small, like crustaceans. I know that the big rats that like the river rats, they'll eat crustaceans. They'll eat small fish and stuff like that. Um, so as long as it's things that don't have any processed stuff in it, don't have any, um, chemicals that shouldn't be there. Again, glyphosate is going to be harmful to the gut microbiome, like it is for us. So you definitely, if you're going to give them anything of that sort, it needs to be, organic in a sense. But there are companies out there that do provide certain like insects and stuff like that you can buy. So you can feed that sort of stuff. But they'll, even leftovers of your own food. You put a bone down, it'll gnaw at it. So I know that one guy, he basically when his T-bones, he'll just put those down in and allow the rat to basically he's got a mouse, a pet mouse, one of those white ones, and just gnaw at the actual bones. So but they practically eat a lot of different things in the environment. So I know the ones that actually in New York, they actually got their own. They've actually got what is similar type of health issues like diabetes and all sorts of things like humans because they eat a lot of the fast food stuff that's been thrown out. So the actual rats in New York are diabetic and have got all sorts of health problems. The wild ones we're talking about, which is crazy. It just shows how bad the processed food diet is for human consumption. So definitely you want things that are non-processed, but you can give them things like, as I said, the bone leftovers and stuff like that, scraps from your own kitchen and stuff like that. Since you're eating the species appropriate diet, I suspect, Tom. So anything like that, yeah, they'll eat that. And you can just observe to see whether they like certain things or don't. So it's playing around, but it's not a specialty of mine, is what I'm saying. I'm just telling you some anecdotes of other people, but it's not a specialty of mine that I haven't really looked into. Other than boron, are there specific minerals or supplements to help reverse osteoporosis? Boron can help, but ultimately getting enough protein into the diet, getting enough protein, and also taurine helps because it amplifies. So with every meal, having a few grams, like 2 grams max. But again, you need to see the video, Jane, that I've got on my major page where it actually talks about side effects, lithium, blood pressure meds. You can add to that metformin. There's a number of things. I probably need to do an updated video covering all the different medications that it interacts with. So you have to be careful with. You can do low doses, like up to 1 gram or half a gram with every meal, and that won't be a problem with medications. But once you get to the 2 or above, you're doing 6 or more per day, then it becomes an issue with medications, a very big issue. But what it does is it amplifies. So I used basically with my father, who's an elderly gentleman who is becoming osteoporotic and sarcopenic in his mid-70s. He'll be, in 20 days from now, he'll be 90. But 15 years ago, more or less, so it takes a while, I had him eating more and more protein, more and more animal foods, and now he's become quite carnivorous. very little. He's reduced plants to very low levels. Even recently, he got into his pantry and all the biscuits and stuff like that he had. He's thrown them all out, so he's got rid of all that. He didn't consume them yet. Occasionally, when somebody turns up, he puts out some little biscuit things with coffee for his guest. So to be sociable. It's a Greek thing. Well, it's everyone, but Greeks find it very important to basically, when they're social, to provide something, some sort of treat, dessert, and usually a sweet dessert. Even though he's only does that occasionally, he's removed that at all completely and said, "Well, look, come for a coffee. I don't want that stuff in my house anymore." He's told his friends, so he's cut all that completely, which is good. I'm hoping that now that he's cut all that, his cancer will regress even faster than before. And that's what I told him. I said, "Look," I said, "Dad, you're probably going to die with it anyway. But if that concerns you, well, you need to take this shit out of your diet." And he goes, I said, "Think about it. I'm not forcing you. It's your life. You know what you do. You need to make the choices and live with the consequences." And last week, as I was talking to him, he said, "I threw the whole lot out." I go, "Great, good for you." So he made that step. But anyway, getting back to you, sorry, I would definitely, if for different minerals and stuff like that, I would look at crustaceans, really important as a source to get a lot of these sort of things. Stick to 3 grams of boron, milligrams of boron and no more, 3 milligrams and no more. I would not do it long term, boron. There's enough boron in a lot of the foods that we eat. It's really increasing your protein synthesis in the bones. And the way that we did it with Dad was making sure that he got 2 scoops of 3 grams of leucine every day. So with these main meals to amplify protein synthesis, because remember, your bones are mineralized collagen. So I made sure that he was getting about 3 grams with every meal. In the evening one, he puts in like 3 grams of taurine, 3 grams of leucine in his yogurt, in his evening yogurt. So he gets that sort of amplification in that regard. And so because he also absorbs more calcium at night, that's why he has his yogurt in the evening, not in the morning. You don't have yogurt in the morning, you have it in the evening. For that reason, because you're going to absorb more, and he would have similar genetics to me. Remember, he was hit by a car a year ago, 4-wheel drive, tossed for 3 meters, no fractures, no broken bones. And the doctors were surprised when they x-rayed how dense his bones were. I fell down a couple of months ago. I came down jogging, went down some stairs and injured myself. Again, same effect, So you want strong bones. Hold on. My phone keeps on. I need to put it in aeroplane mode. Friggin' hell. Go away. Stop disturbing. Okay. Back to where I was. What was I saying? Yeah. And so you need to basically amplify protein synthesis in the bones. The thing that actually binds to the mTOR receptor is taurine. So if you're eating sufficient protein, you should be generating sufficient taurine from the pancreas. If you're concerned, you've got to always supplement a bit. And the way I combine it with Dad, with leucine and taurine and a dairy product, I make sure he's got a good vitamin D levels, because that helps with bringing in, and you don't want also, and you want eggs as well, because eggs are a good source of selenium. Selenium is also very important as well for the immune system, for a lot of these functions. All these things sort of work synergistically together. It's not just one thing. I've primarily used boron in the past more for the purpose of normalizing hormones as a short-term 3-month thing rather than a long-term thing. I don't recommend it personally because it has the ability to reduce the amount of, it's like having 2 avocados a day, but I consider that probably, after that, I believe that people should just, have like one of these, if they really want to, once every 3 days, a boron, 3 grams, if they're going to do it long term. For the reason for that is because it has an effect to deplete both magnesium and potassium. It can actually deplete those, especially in higher doses, over 3 milligrams. So that's the reason why I sort of go for the low doses and then space them out if you're going to do it. But the key thing is what you want is, if you're concerned about things like that, is a mineral supplement as well, like a colloidal mineral supplement that's properly ionized. So those minerals can actually attach to the metalloproteins in the gut to be transferred into the body, which is important. That's why some of these supplemental stuff can be a problem in absorption. They end up in the bowl, so you're wasting your money. Especially with calcium, what happens is there's the opposite. You get massive amounts that come through, not the rightly regulated by the metalloproteins to bring in the right amount. So those are the sort of issues. Again, I don't know your genetics. So if you have genetics like me and my father, which is 24% of the population have, those genes affect how well you absorb calcium. So you may need more. I don't know whether you're consuming sufficient dairy, sardines and things like that to get sufficient calcium. That's another issue because remember, the bone is mineralized collagen. So we don't need a lot. If you, over a whole lifespan, you're actually absorbing small amounts each time, it builds up the amount of calcium around the bones. So this whole notion you need excessive amounts continuously is sort of ill-advised. You end up with a lot in soft tissue, which isn't very healthy or very good in terms of calcified tissue. But when it comes to the actual body itself, protein is king and leucine is king. You want to amplify protein synthesis and you want to reduce the amount of damage. The other thing that is important is the fat-soluble vitamins because they regulate the enzymes that are involved in, collagen structure turnover. So what I call the matrix metalloproteinases. So if they're too upregulated and they're not regulated properly, you can actually do damage to your collagen structures in your body. And that's where vitamin D status is very important because it's one of the key regulators. And the other one is if you're eating enough dairy fat and eggs and stuff like that, you should get enough retinol in your diet. And if you're getting enough retinol and vitamin D, you can regulate those. So as you can see, it's a tapestry of a lot of things that are interplaying to determine whether you have healthy bones or not. So dad consumes the dairy, the eggs. He has 6 to 8 eggs a day. So he gets high quality protein plus the cholesterol plus all the retinol and all the other stuff that he needs to regulate those enzymes to do their job properly. Plus, he's getting sufficient, from the dairy and all that and the cheeses and stuff like that. He's getting sufficient vitamin K2, which is important as well, and some of the other fat soluble vitamins to support the proper regulation of the pathways that are involved in bone formation and maintenance of bone as well. Plus, he takes taurine, which amplifies protein synthesis. It's a combo of all these things, species-appropriate diet, with a couple of supplements of that sort that actually can amplify and increase the actual collagen structures. Because remember, if you're basically not giving the body sufficient protein, you can't build the bone matrix. If you can't build the bone matrix, you can't hold, if you don't have the scaffolding, how are you going to basically deposit the minerals, the primary one being calcium, you'll have more loss. So, when you look at the studies, you actually quite clearly see that, calcium loss, you decrease protein intake, you get more calcium loss. You increase protein intake, you get more calcium utilization. Again, as I said, it's mineralized collagen. So if you don't do it that way, you can't build stronger bones and healthier bones. It's pretty much it. That's how we do it. You need to be a species appropriate diet. And then the genetic issues of calcium is the other component. And I don't know your genes, so I can't, you can, but if you're basically osteoporotic and you're getting sufficient protein in and it's not seeming to move the needle, I would say you probably have the genetics for increased requirement of calcium. Have some cheese. Jonathan's here as well. G'day, Jonathan. Where's the Q? Where is the Q, Gregory? You've got to put a Q in front of every question. And where's my, Happy New Year, guys? Gregory. Thoughts on coconut oil for Alzheimer's? I have a family member with MCI, mild Alzheimer's disease. Think it could be for any help. Well, Alzheimer's disease, like most diseases in the body, is from inappropriate diets, mitochondrial damage, and oxidative stress in the brain, derangements in protein folding, senescence, that means aged cells, and so on and so on. Adding MCT oil or coconut oil or stuff like that, there's a number of issues. If your family comes from Northern Europe, you may have a salicylate sensitivity, so it may not be a good idea. So where Southern Europeans don't have a problem, we have adapted to salicylates, so it doesn't affect us negatively. So in those sort of cases, like a purified MCT is probably more appropriate. But also you can use ketones. You can buy ketones. Number of people do, to basically provide that extra energy that their own brains can't produce. So that can help in that regard. I don't know what medication she's on or the family member's on. He didn't say she, just said family member. You don't know what medication your family member's on, so it's hard to advise on these sort of things. Taurine helps a lot, but if somebody's on lithium and all sorts of other medications and blood pressure meds like calcium channel blockers and whatever, there are issues in basically dealing with, you need to sort of come off those. But in terms of protein folding, it really is important. Taurine can actually improve protein folding and clear amyloid, so it can actually take the glycation off the amyloid, reduce the amyloid. Because amyloid is important in the brain, but too much is a problem, too little is a problem. And in particular, misfolded and glycated amyloids. What taurine does is reduces glycation in the brain and also refolds forces the refolding, and it actually manipulates water to basically do the refolding. And protein refolding is really important in every disease that exists. Misfolded proteins is what actually drives aging in the body. And taurine has the ability to force the refolding, the proper clearance, which means that then allows the brain cells to function properly. So, and those synaptic pathways to do proper communications. But without knowing all the other medications that you're on, I just, This isn't a consultancy thing, so I can't actually, and this is not medical advice either. All I can say is that depending on the damage, it can take, how long is a string? Sometimes people come too late to the party. Obviously, taurine is very important because it actually can produce new brain cells. So it, over time, like a decade, can reduce the level of dementia and Alzheimer's in the person by increasing and all that. But you have to also stop all the bad diet that's actually increasing and doing a lot of the derangements and the damage and the high deuterium that's damaging as well, energy production inside the brain. So inside the brain cells, that are producing, they've also producing energy. And if you damage those energy pathways, cells are producing the energy, what happens is they don't function properly. If they're not functioning properly, then they need to be cleared out. And so there's senolytics. So if you go and check my cancer playlist about senolytics and stuff like that, they have applicability to these sort of conditions as well, killing off all these damaged cells and then using taurine to produce new ones, encouraging the body, because that's what mummy's milk does, has the highest level of taurine, which basically is involved in producing new stem cells inside the brain. Okay? Doesn't do it in the peripheral tissue, but it does in the brain. Why? Don't ask me. I have no idea. It just does it. We know that it does it. So that's the sort of things I would do. Coconut oil isn't going to really help much. So. And you're asking, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? It's really the level of damage. A lot of them, there's a lot of overlap in the type of damage that they get. It's more that the areas of the brain that get damaged, you actually exhibit different sort of behaviors and different sort of, if you're the centers of the brain that are affected are the ones of certain memory or short-term memory and everything like that. Then it's called Alzheimer's. If it's areas like others type of cognitive decline, as they call it dementia. But really, Alzheimer's is just another type of dementia. That's all it is. Dementia is sort of a general category that covers everything, and Alzheimer's is a specific category of where people can't retain anything in terms of memory. They really have poor retention, but they can remember a whole lot of old things. But anything recent, they can't retain at all, and they also show in specific areas of the brain more damage compared to other types of dementia, where other people have different general dementia will have varied, and even through the day and through the weeks, they will have varied types of, some days I'll have better days, some days I'll have worse days with dementia, where with Alzheimer's it's just like permanent. So there's too much damage that has actually happened. So it's a worst case of dementia in a sense. So the simplest way of actually describing it. Well, it is, Richard. It is a form of dementia. Yeah. You know, dementia is just a general description of all these pathologies where there are specific, and there is a lot of overlap between Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and dementia, the general thing. So there's, with a lot of these conditions, there's a lot of overlap because it really is you've damaged the mitochondria in the brain, and you damaged a number of pathways, and they're not working properly, and because they're not working properly, the brain isn't working properly. So that's the funny thing is, when you do improve the brain, people actually remember certain things and say, oh, and people say, well, how can you remember? these sort of things. There is a thing called the soul. It sort of signifies that there is a soul, which is a good thing to know, because otherwise you wouldn't have that effect, which is very confusing for the atheist doctor who goes, it's not possible. Yes, as long as you don't believe in a soul, it isn't possible. So anyway, but yeah, so coconut oil isn't going to really help. It may provide a few ketones. Then again, if you've got high insulin, the person's got high insulin, the amount of ketones produced from the coconut oil are going to be minuscule. The effect is going to be bugger all irrelevant. Even a diabetic can actually produce a few ketones, but to produce sufficient to provide energy, you really need to be in a low carb state. So that's why I say it's a waste of money, a waste of, and you could even induce a salicylate sensitivity in the person for no good reason. So I'm not really into that sort of stuff. If I'm going to use anything for energy, I'd be using ketones, buying actual ketones. They are pricey. You can get ketone salts. They tend to be a bit cheaper. And that's an option to use to try and improve the energy utilization in the brain, and the ability for that person to become a bit more functional. But it's not going to fix the problem, the pre-existing damage. You really have to change the diet and lifestyle, and I don't know whether that family member's prepared to. So it's a bit more complicated in that regard. But if you've got more information about the person and all that, just leave a message, a comment, providing that what their diet is on, all that sort of stuff, because that all helps in trying to provide better guidance, so to speak, if you know more about the person. But no, you really need to clean it. The person needs to clean up their diet, and all the people who are managing them need to clean up their diet and include foods that are, like eggs. Eggs are a powerhouse because they've got so much cholesterol in them and so much other nutrients that are very important for the brain. You're welcome. Online diet for autoimmune issues, but my calcium intake is only 100 milligrams a day. Is that enough? I'm concerned for long term. Depends on your genetics. I couldn't answer that. If your genetics are where some people have genetics that can absorb calcium really well, and you only need small amounts and you can get enough from meat. But if you're one of those unfortunate, like myself, 24% of people on this planet that have the pastoral genes, then if you're not consuming enough, you will become deficient, like people like me and my dad. Got to blame somebody, so I've blamed Dad. Yeah, so really, what your requirement is will depend on those factors. Do you think there are, Matt Taylor, where's my, Happy New Year, Happy New Year, New Year's Eve or whatever. Can't you see the background? That's Hobart, down at the waterfront on New Year's Eve, the previous year. It's just an image. Sort of the yachts are there as well I suspect from the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. So yes, a lively place. Well, at least for that part of the year. Anyway, do you think there are any benefits to crystal healing? No. um, why is it chance? Could wearing amethyst bracelets have benefits to the body? I have no idea. I know copper. Ancestrally, people have used copper around, and it seems to have an effect because there is some interaction between the skin, the dermis, and it seems to basically have a bit of a benefit. It's a bit like Epsom salts get absorbed through the skin. It seems like copper has a bit of an effect in terms of healing. There's anecdotes through history that it's been used, but this sort of bracelet, I have no idea. Do they resonate? No idea. That benefit. Does it work like sound healing? No idea. Absolutely no idea. But I know crystal healing does not work. Some people have used it, like vegans and stuff like that. They said only when they switch to a carnivore diet do they see any healing. So it definitely doesn't have any effect. In that regard, maybe there is, with all these things, there could be very subtle because, sound, light, all have an effect on the physiology. So, we've, and so the way water is manipulated in the body has an effect. Earthing has an effect and all that. I suspect if these things do have an effect, it will be very low grade. So it won't be an important factor if you don't get all the other stuff proper in that regard. But I haven't looked into this sort of stuff, so I don't know in that regard. But the sort of the stuff I've looked into it at a very cursory level to see whether there is any real, and there's been some in Europe. I think there was a study on crystals and they couldn't see any difference, but obviously the people are on a general diet, on a SAD diet that they were comparing. So obviously, the SAD diet just overwhelmed if it had any effect, it'd be so minor that the bad diet was the thing that just made it impossible to see anything. Even earthing, if you're earthing and you're eating a poor diet, you're not going to see much benefit. You'll see you'll do less damage to yourself, but you're still going to be doing damage, is what I'm saying. So even earthing isn't a panacea if you're basically doing the wrong thing. Diet and light, particular things to do with sleep cycles and circadian rhythms, those two tend to be really, really important, in terms of health. We know that quite clearly from experimental evidence that it's really important to get good sleep and to get, there's Sandra as well. Hello, Sandra. How are you? But we're also, I have to bring that down. Anyway, why is it popping up? Damn. Yeah, Lukey's here as well. G'day, Lukey. Got a lot of people turning up. Late, as usual. I'll have to send Ted around. He's got a new pet, My Tasmanian devil goes and visits occasionally. Yes. But, yeah, look, I would say, just let me drink a bit of... It's not going to harm you. It definitely won't. Yeah, it's not going to cause you any harm, any health issues. I'm not going to basically say don't do it in that regard. But I'm not going to either... I wouldn't say discourage you from these sort of things, but get the diet right and you'll notice far greater improvements in your health. I think that's our foundation stone should be the diet and sleep. They should be the two key things. You get those right, most things go away. You don't get those right, your health really goes. It just goes to shit in that regard. Anyway, I should look into it. You know what? I'll look into it a bit more. See if I can gemstones like interesting psychosomatic benefits. Yeah, it probably is. There probably is a bit of the placebo type effect that you'd also get in that regard. Yeah, probably Lukey. Yeah, yeah. But how can I put it? I never close the door on anything. It doesn't mean I'm going to accept it, but I never close the door on anything. I like looking into things, Matt. Because there may be some, even if it's a minor thing, a minor effect, I'll tell you. Yeah, there is a minor effect, but it's nothing to to get overly excited about. So anyway, this is the new one now, the peptide GHP Qu and Qu meaning copper, the copper binding one. Yeah, look, it's if I had an injury, like like some sort of injury, a collagen related injury, which was, it may be one of those supplements that you could probably use for that purpose. Would I supplement on a daily basis with that? No, I wouldn't waste my money on it. As long as I've got the diet right, I'm getting enough protein synthesis, I'm getting enough proper turnover, my body's being properly regulated, things will go fine. And none of the Maasai or none of the Hadza require these sort of things to live into their hundreds and whatever. So why should the rest of us? It really has to do you have any pre-existing damage? You've sustained something, like, and it seems to work more better with skin-related conditions than anything else. That's where most of the research has been done on this peptide. But yeah, don't know. How I haven't, to be honest, I've cursory looked at it as a peptide, but I haven't really gone down the rabbit hole to really investigate it properly, whether it's suitable as a biohack. I'll look into it, Christina, for you. I'll look into it and see whether it's worthwhile as a biohack. I mean, I've got, your taurine, I've got your fisetin, I've got these things, all these other things, the very little leucine and citrulline, all these other biohacks for longevity and, to improve cellular function. But I'll look at this as well to see whether there's any value in it or not. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know. Anyway, Bruce, how are you? Any recommendations for healing? And where's my Q? You've got no Q in front. How dare you, as Greta would say. How dare you, Bruce? Yes. Happy New Year to you as well. Any recommendations for healing diabetic foot, silicosis wound, and decreased peripheral circulation? Get on a species appropriate diet. Tell that family member of yours. I've heard earthing mats and colloidal silver help. Colloidal silver is a double-edged sword. It's a bit like methylene blue. I have used colloidal silver in the past, but in very small doses for specific, because usually people that get this sort of stuff, foot-related stuff, they can get fungal type conditions. They get all sorts of bloody things in their body, and these sort of things can help. Again, you have to be very careful with the dosing when it comes to these sort of substances. But earthing, yeah, definitely, you're not going to have any bad negative side effects from that. Really, the most important thing is the diet. Supplements aren't going to fix a bad diet. Let's be quite clear about that. And I don't know what medication. Remember, you've got interactions between calcium channel blockers, lithium, metformin, all these things with taurine, which would be really good for this person. If they were to take like 2 grams per meal, it would bring down their blood sugars, their blood pressure, and regulate better their minerals and their fluids in their body, because diabetics tend to have a lot of fluid retention as well. And that would also put less that would improve the peripheral circulation. The other one is citrulline, 3 grams of citrulline, but that also is a vasodilator, reduces blood pressure. If the person's on calcium channel blockers and all that, they got to get off that stuff before you can start introducing these sort of supplements that help. So, those are the sort of things you can do. Citrulline, taurine. Don't go over 6 grams on taurine because they may have sulfur related issues. It may not even be genetic. It can be sometimes just derangement when somebody's diabetic. So there's all these bloody things. So I would be very careful about that, the way you go about it. So, but really they have to fix their diet. The more they take out the crap, the better the better all these things are going to help. It's not many other ways around it, Bruce. Okay, man. I'm just putting them up until I get to a question. And then I stop. Do you think we will find a way in future for humans to live forever? Unlikely. Entropy is far too powerful force to allow living forever. We can probably slow down aging, yes, but living forever, nah. Some kind of robot human hybrid, nah. That's just another nonsense. We've got a soul, and we know we've got a soul because we can see it when people have dementia or improvements in dementia. They can remember things they're not supposed to, and certain other things. So I believe I'm a theist, and all the actual science now proves that theism is correct. The LHC, which is in CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, has actually shown there is no supersymmetry. Let me just give you a reason for this, because this is a deep philosophical thing. It goes all the way back to ancient Greece. The ancient Greeks believed there was, like Pythagoras, for instance, he believed that there was something beyond the physical into the metaphysical realm, some sort of mind, some sort of deity, some sort of God. Okay? This is the same thing that Judeo-Christian faith has. All the other religions, sorry to say, have their gods are within this universe. Since we have the microwave background radiation, we know that there was an earlier stage where things were smaller. The universe had a beginning. Whether people like to believe it or not, that's what that microwave background radiation shows. That is a reality in that regard. The universe has not existed forever. The other movement, which has to do with people talking about, like philosophers like Plato, they believed in what is called the world of perfect forms, that there is a metaphysical realm beyond space-time. So this is why the Greeks were the first to really understand the metaphysical realm. They were able to break from the prison of the world. But obviously they had two competing ideas. One, Pythagoras, much closer to the Judeo-Christian in a sense. Plato was much closer to the concept of string theory or M theory that it evolved to, which is wrong as well. I'll explain. Now, those perfect forms could actually, without requiring a god or anything, could actually produce everything in the universe. So that was Plato's idea of this metaphysical realm, that through the energies of this metaphysical realm could manifest in this world all the different forms, all the different things, in a sense. So you don't need God. It's just basically this realm of perfect forms that are projected or into this realm, in a sense, and can manifest in ways we don't really understand yet. So that was revolutionary thinking for the time. Nowadays, since the sort of most scientists in the early days were theists to some extent, there was a stronger atheist group, and they pushed to try and remove God from science completely. They failed, and I'll explain why. The requirements for this sort of Platonic view is strings. These strings exist without requiring God, and they can generate universes. They can generate the creation of anything because they are the archetypal sort of perfect forms that can generate all the other forms. Okay? That's the sort of mathematics that they developed. But in order for that to happen, you require supersymmetry. Otherwise, those perfect forms can't exist to generate the sort of the universe. I'm trying to keep the science very basic, as you can understand. I'm not going to go into, the different particle physics and their standard model, which is the muons and and all the other particles. Now, in order for supersymmetry to exist, you need to have an equal amount of muons with some of these other particles. We don't. There are less muons compared to the other particles. So there's no supersymmetry. That means Plato's or string theory goes out the door. It's a bust. Okay? We know that it was a beginning. So there is a metaphysical realm. Now, without supersymmetry, you can't have multidimensionals. So you can't have multiverse universes. Got it? You can't have one, you can't have the other. Supersymmetry was the foundation stone for both. So people like Richard Dawkins, the atheist fanatic, that's what I call him, he basically believes that, these people believed that you could actually, the universe is just these brains and these multiverse universes, just one peers off the other and creates multiple different universes, one after the other. So you don't need an architect. You don't need fine tuning. The universe just creates all little other universes, multiple universes, quadrillions of universes. And in the very few handful of universes, a small amount of universes, basically, all these variations, so an electron or a positron or any particle in a different position, all these different positions then create these different complexities over time, and very few universes have life and complexity. And it just happened through random universes being generated and all the other ones going away and just or not having any life, and just a very few that did. And it was just through random sort of interactions and consequences. So you don't need any fine tuning, any architect or anything. You don't need God, basically. But with a standard model of particle physics being absolutely eviscerated, now we know that we've got the Higgs boson or the Higgs field, and that generates all these particles. So we may only find energies, certain energies, when we go into higher energies, within the this type of collider or a future collider, and we may find artifacts potentially of the uncreated energies of God that actually keep the universe together. Maybe not. Maybe God is smarter than us and will prevent us from actually seeing that stuff. I don't know. Maybe he wants us to see that, to get to use the divine language of mathematics to understand much deeper things. I'm not going to try and get into God's mind. It's a mystery, as we say it in religion, in Christianity. But what it actually has done has meant that we've got one universe which is too finely tuned, too complex to have happened by chance, which means that there is a creator there, and the only creator that's revealed himself is a Judeo-Christian creator. And when we go right through and look at, things like 700 years ago and 300 years ago, certain things being described. I can't remember whether it's 300 or 700 years where one of the prophets actually describes the crucifixion before Romans existed in the area of the Judea and Samaria or Israel. These people had already prophesied the coming of and the sacrifice that would have to be happened as it was revealed. Now we also have found the chariots further south, which eviscerates the story that it was along the coast, which no archaeological evidence would happen, and the atheists say, oh, it was a tsunami from Santorini or something like that, equivalent. Now it's further down in the Red Sea, which means that water body is very stable because there's landmass around. There's no potential for tsunamis or anything. So pretty much, and we've actually found the location where they crossed, and it's the part of the sand in that area is glassed. They've got no idea. Some powerful beam from God glassed it and just opened up. And they found all these chariots now. And we know it's across to an area which borders between where we know the Israelis came in, the Jews came in, because that's the archaeological evidence. But we couldn't prove that, and that's why the atheists say, "Oh, they came from there. The Bible's wrong because they thought they came from along the Mediterranean coast, which they didn't." Now we found the archaeological evidence. We found the stone that was broken, and the sort of erosion from water, and that whole area is bone dry. The Saudis on the other side have to basically use desalinated water because that whole region is bone dry. It's rocky, very rocky, volcanic, rocky, and bone dry. So, it fits our story, but for the scientists, it's a mystery. I have no idea. And then we find all these, when we look at, fossils and when we look at all these sort of things, what do we find? Another thing that's very interesting, they still have carbon-14. Carbon-14 is supposed to basically be, after millions of years or very long period of time, supposed to vanish. That doesn't make sense. And, sort of inflation, how quick inflation actually happened and the universe expanded, we don't know. We just see back and we go, oh, it's 13 point so many billion years ago. Well, when you take the C14 and then the potential for the deity to basically inflate to whatever they like, science is traditional atheist science is collapsing, is what I'm saying. And with it is collapsing all these notions. If people think we can put the human into something inorganic, something without life, they're deluding themselves. Even our eyes are now, they're just stupid. They're just codes. I deal with them. We have an AI that we have for cartography. They are just machines. They can sound very pretty and very smart, but they're just dumb machines with algorithms. That's all they are. They follow algorithms. You take away the algorithms, they just create gibberish, a mess. They've got no structure. They need structure, and the algorithms are the structure which we tell them what to do. So it's complete and utter nonsense. The whole thing. I used to be an atheist, and as the multiverse thing came apart, this is about a decade ago, and the string theory and all that was starting to fall apart and all that. I go, this is crap. We're living in a single universe, which is finely tuned, and eventually, in 2011 or 2010, is the time when the LHC showed that there was no supersymmetry. And at that point, I realised the game is up for atheism. It's dead. You can't resurrect it. There is no supersymmetry. All the other assumptions are invalid. So, you can take your Platonic views and whatever, and you can shred them because they're meaningless. They've got no value whatsoever. And so and this is why a lot of physicists in particular, some of the smartest people in the world are coming back to Christianity, coming back to faith. They're not accidental. These are not people deranged, crazy, lost their mind. I even lost my mind. I realise that there is fine-tuning There has to be a mind behind it. You know, we are made in the image, and that's why we're the only species that can create. The only creature that was created by God that can create. Not even the actual angels, which have got free will and also, you know, can interact at much higher to our sort of level compared to other animals. They can't either because they don't have the spark, because we get something from the divine. That's what we call the soul. And when we suppress the soul with wickedness and evilness, what do we become? More animalistic, more emotional, more, we become more deranged. You see some of these people who really lose their, that is what we become because we're suppressing that divine light that we have inside us from God. He gives us that. Part of himself, in a sense, is what I believe, So we are divine creatures. And in especially Eastern Orthodox Christology, we have the understanding of theosis, of becoming more God-like, because we are created in the image of Christ. So we have part of that form, that template, in so to speak. So, pretty much that whole idea is dying, and science came out of people with either deep understandings in philosophy or deep understandings in faith. It wasn't basically, and this is another important thing for the atheist to understand out there. You have a skewed idea about the world in terms of religion. You have this demon about, Christianity being evil, it's suppressed, it did all these bad things. Yes, it did, but they were humans that did this, not people. Now, if you go to the eastern part, and you have to understand, there were five patriarchs, always have been from the beginning of the church. Jerusalem, Antioch, Alexandria, Rome, and Constantinople. They are the five patriarchs. Even the Pope's taken the title back because his nickname was Pope because he had a bastard child, and the child called him Papa, and the nickname stuck, as Pope. That's where it originates from. But he's a patriarch. He's taken back the title recently, this one, but he's a patriarch. He's not a pope. And the word patriarch comes from the old Jewish, the senior sort of priesthood. They are patriarchs of the faith, patriarchs and servants of God, so to speak. So I know this is long, but this is an important thing to understand why this is all nonsense. And in the West, the Germanic tribes conquered the Western Roman Empire, and these pagan leaders wanted to take political authority away from the East and that's why they gave them the nickname Byzantium, the Eastern Roman Empire. And they basically corrupted, to some extent, the West and made it a very militaristic religion, where in the East it's never been that. You've got the state, the separation of church and state has always existed, as God said, to that which is Caesar's is Caesar, to that which is God's is God's. Different roles. That's where we criticise the sort of they are the closest to us, but they're in heresy on these things. I don't view that the Catholics are lost, because most of the Catholics, especially the conservative ones, they understand the faith very similar to us. The problem is their leaders are basically, have been corrupted by power, in a sense, and that's their problem. And that's where the problem comes. Even our patriarch in Constantinople now is being manipulated by the American deep state, unfortunately, and that's another, there's going to be a bit of conflict there at some stage as well. But on the other hand, going back to the reasons that I'm saying why these people think in the East, there was never I always say to atheists, show me one time where there was persecution of pagans or where the authorities actually, there may have been some Christians that did a few nasty things. Yes, that happens everywhere. Even today happens where people do inappropriate things. But there was never an official edict. There was no, persecution. There was no burning of witches or women or any of this. None of this happened in the East. In the East, it was tolerant. You could be nearly atheist and you were still tolerated. You were a Muslim, you were a Jew, you could live in the city of Constantinople. You weren't persecuted. You were a Catholic, you weren't persecuted. And also even a pagans still existed and weren't persecuted. And there was never not a single edict ever recorded by the Emperor of Constantinople against pagans. Never. The people just converted in mass and continued converting. So that's the difference. And they did it voluntary because we believe you have to come voluntary to Christ. You can't be forced. It can't be a fake faith. You have to truly want a relationship because you can't, unless you have a relationship, you can't have to have theosis. Theosis doesn't work without a relationship with Christ. That means to get the divine connection. You have to basically. So it's a prerequisite that you have to come voluntarily. You can't force somebody. The West lost its way because of politics of the Germanic tribes that took over, and they wanted to they politicized the institution, is what I'm trying to say. And to some extent, it still is too involved in earthly things. It should not be involved. The church should not be involved. The good thing about the Eastern Orthodox is because of what I call the monasteries in Mount Athos, which is an autonomous region in Greece, in Macedonia, Greece. That autonomous region, those priests are the ones who have fought against heresy very strongly, and they've kept the faith, to orthodox, no deviation, to traditions, nothing. Everything the way it was set down by Christ and the apostles. And we call ourselves the real Jews, the true Jews, because it's just a faith. They are ethnic Israelites, Sumerians. That's what they are. They're not Jews. They broke from the faith because the faith is the Jewish. It has nothing to do with racial. You have to understand. So the early Christians or the followers of Christ, they are the true Jews. We are the true Jews, and pretty much they kept the priesthood. They kept all that. They kept all the trappings. The way you look at the temples with the iconography, it's the same way the old temples were. You go back. It's exactly the same. We only show Christ. We don't show the Father either in our churches. It's quite clear. This is why the East hasn't lost its faith. Like still 90% of the population is still that. Why? Because there was never any persecution of people. It was voluntary and with love. That is the difference. That's what the West lost. It lost its spirituality because we have a deep spirituality, a mysticism in Eastern Orthodox rites that has been lost in the West. That's why people are devoid. They have no, their soul cannot make a spiritual connection. It is devoid. It's dead inside, and that's why there are so many atheists. People are always all these alternative things. If you really want proper faith, personally, I know this is the last preaching. That's where you need to look, Matthew. And you're not going to find it in being turned into a cyborg. All they're going to do is just, if they do anything, they're going to extract some of your memories, and it will be a machine that is not human and has some of your memories. No different than coding in some stuff. That's all it is. Don't fall for this delusion. It's a delusion. The only true salvation is through Christ. Anyway, that's the last preaching because this is a nutritional, and I'll keep that stuff on the other channel, my opinions. But yeah, for your benefit, Matthew. The rest of you, I don't care if you have to endure it. Some of you atheists out there. She's out of you? Gee, Ducky. Why do a lot of studies have outcomes that low carb diets have lower muscle glycogen? Why don't they use gluconeogenesis? Um, because they use proxies. They use proxies in order to determine some of this sort of stuff, which is completely wrong. And that's why they get the wrong measurements. When you actually do proper studies, which have been done, proper studies on athletes in locked up wards, like Steve Finney and Volker have actually done these things, they actually see no difference. Even after competition, no difference. Gluconeogenesis covers it completely. The problem is you have to be fat adapted. Most of these people are not fat adapted. There's your problem. They still have a bit too high their insulin, which means they can't produce enough glucose through gluconeogenesis. Because remember, it's glucagon dependent. If there's too much insulin, the insulin to glucagon ratio, too much insulin, less glucagon, less capacity for gluconeogenesis. That's why they're finding that result, because people have not been fat adapted. They've shifted these people and then going, oh, their levels are different. Well, because they're not fat adapted, you can't do it for a week. That's ridiculous. These are sort of like week or 2 week studies. You've probably seen them. They just litter the whole literature and it's nonsense because you're not fat adapted, because it needs time to the body to, upregulate a whole lot of enzymes and stuff like that to basically, when you are properly fat adapted, you see no difference between athletes who are low carb and high carb. But you need a washout period for adaptation. What they do is they don't do any washout period, or it's a very short washout period, which isn't sufficient for that adjustment and adaptation. So it's bullshit. And it's usually people that are on a sad diet, which are glucose dependent. They're not adapted. So the washout period is a joke because it's usually short, but even if it was a bit longer, it'd still not be sufficient time for fat adaptation. So you're not going to get the same sort of stuff. So, and the other thing is also you need to use muscle biopsies that give them, and the adaptation time as well. Yeah, some don't. Some actually just do measurements of blood glucose, and they don't even actually look at biopsies at all. Like Steve Finney and Jeff Volker. I mean, Steve now is actually retired, but Jeff is still doing a lot of this sort of stuff. They do actually. They've got them in locked up sort of facilities, actual labs, and they basically are taking biopsies continuously. Athletes will do that because they're a bit crazy. They want to win. They want to get the edge. So they want to know what works. So they're prepared to go through all this. Normal people that most of these studies are done are not prepared to do this sort of invasive. They just do the general, your general blood test, your general sort of urine test and stuff like that, which don't really provide sufficient proof of what exactly are the glycogen levels, what exactly is the level of gluconeogenesis or production of glucose endogenously. So I would take all that research and throw it in the bin because it's pretty much irrelevant and it's very poorly done. When I say low, I don't mean ketogenic. Yeah, even low carb. You don't have to be fully ketogenic to be fat adapted. You can be low carb for a period of time and become fat adapted. So fat adaptation isn't ketogenesis. Okay, so let's not confuse the two. Because someone who is fat adapted can produce all the glucose. Yeah, exactly. They can, as long as they're fat adapted. That means, and their insulin isn't high because it's an insulin related. It's insulin to glucagon ratio that people like Ben Bickman talk about. It's important because that plays an important role on whether you can or how much you can. So, especially for somebody who's a high performing athlete who really needs to basically be ketogenic in order to basically produce sufficient glycogen because of that high level of exercise. So, so if you're not at that level, it's just not going to work at all. Anyway, let's get to another question. As you know, my mother-in-law recently suffered a stroke and has had her main artery cleared out, 95% blocked. She's having some memory issues. I can't get her to stop eating seed oils. Yeah, that's the problem. Seed oils is the big one. I don't know what meds she's on, Shelley. Taurine is the most important thing for people with strokes because of the red blood perfusion, because you have hypoxia and then red blood perfusion where blood rushes back in. And because of the hypoxia, you have a lot of cells that start dying, and you end up with damaged cells with a lot of free electrons floating around in that hypoxic environment. And then you have this red blood perfusion that comes through, and that interaction between oxygen and the level of what we call free radicals, you have this sort of interaction, and you have this massive oxidative stress that actually it's after the initial blockage and stroke, that after effect, the red blood perfusion, that does most of the damage, both in the heart, in the brain, in where these things happen. So, and the thing that actually reduces and improves is taurine. Taurine actually has the ability to lower the oxidative stress and help recover. The problem is if people are on blood pressure meds, on lithium, then you retain lithium too much, which isn't a good thing, and can actually cause psychotic events if you're using it for psychological issues. You've got metformin that you can get into hypoglycemia and all, and so on, so on, a whole lot of other interactions with some other meds in terms of nausea and stuff like that. You really need to look at the meds and lower those things. You can start with small amounts, like 0.5 gram per mil, and see how she copes, and get up to one gram at least per mil, so 3 grams a day. That will help. The ideal is to get more than that. If I was actually trying to get somebody, I'd get them on every meal having 6 grams, up to 18 grams per day. But then again, sulfur tolerance, then you need choline to deal with the sulfur tolerance, and many other things. So, and blood and medical interactions. But if you can get her on, like, start with 0.5 gram and get her onto 1 gram at least with every meal, the blood pressure would come down. The blood sugar will come down, but not at dangerous levels. And then next time she goes to the doctor would look and say, "Oh, these things are improved. Let's change the dose a bit and lower it down." Got it? So, and then you can go to the next one. 2 grams per meal. Oh, we need to change your meds again, my dear, and lower them down even further. So that's one way of doing it in a safe way and getting that person to transition away from some of these meds. And that will help. And things like citrulline as well. But I'd first use the taurine, fix all that, get her off some of these meds, and then consider, because that's a vasodilator, a really important one. But you can't really introduce it if you're on blood pressure meds, and a mid to high dose is really problematic. So yeah, small steps, my dear, small steps. Yeah, look, yeah, it's taken me a long time to basically convince Dad about a lot of things. So a work in progress, as I say. Just persevere. HD. Oral alone may be helpful for Alzheimer's, depending on reverse or improvements in energy production in the brain. Yeah, but ultimately, like as I said earlier, the diet is important. People need to change the diet for conditions like this. You're not going to get a lot of, you can take ketones. If you're going to take anything, I'd take ketones to give you a bit more energy to be able to function. But it's not going to stop the decline or the damage if people are still putting inappropriate things in their body. So things can help, but they're not going to fix the problem, especially if people are. Yeah. She'll buy eggs 2 weeks before saying they're bad and then send them home with hubs and I just want to scream, eat them. Yeah. Show that study, that 25 eggs per day, that old geezer that was consuming. And he was in his late years and outlived his parents as well. So show that study. Maybe that will make her realise, oh, maybe these people are talking shit. What, this person been doing it over multiple decades? Really? Yeah, well, I did a video on molybdenum ages ago, as you know, Lukey, which can be helpful in blood sugar regulation and stuff like that. But again, the other issue there is on metformin and high dose metformin. We don't want to cause hypoglycemia either. So it's really important to get people slowly off the drugs by small little changes using things like taurine, which do a whole lot of multiple things. That could be used later on. At this stage, using things like taurine that does multiple things at the same time, lowers blood sugar, lowers blood pressure, lowers oxidative stress, improves certain outcomes with these sort of, it reduces fibrosis. As you guys know, it helped me with my heart, those sort of things. That's sort of like the Swiss Army knife that does a lot of things at the same time. So I'd rather go that way, especially if somebody's on medication, and slowly wean them off the meds. I mean, some people are on like 20 odd, 20, 30, just crazy amounts of meds some people are on. It's ridiculous. Yes, Sandra. Latecomers. You tell them, Richard. You tell them, damn latecomers. How dare you come so late? Oh, somebody's blown a heart my way. God, there you go. Probably for everyone. Rod 433. Thanks for your take on calcium. You're welcome. I still can't get past the issue of ChatGPT says I lose more calcium in my urine, sweat, feces each day than I take in. Is ChatGPT wrong? Yes, it is. Because like any AI, garbage in, garbage out, whatever the people put in as they code encode, that's the right word, encode certain instructions and certain information which is biased. Actually, I have made a video on calcium, but I haven't actually released it yet. I forgot all about it. Actually, I did it a while ago. Actually, yeah. Anyway, I know why I didn't actually release it. I didn't cover some issues on that, and that's why it's fine, the video, but I needed to cut. I like completeness, and if it's not complete, I'm not going to release it. But I'll just give you a bit of a snip, a bit of a teaser, as they say. Your excretion can be anywhere from like 10, 12 milligrams if your intake of calcium is low, all the way up to 300 or more. Vast amounts. Has absolutely nothing to do that you sweat and lose away massive amounts. That is absolute bullshit. The body's much smarter than that, and it regulates. This is some just nonsense studies that were done on people who are unhealthy in hospitals, and the clinical stuff that say, oh, these people are losing. Well, yeah, they're obviously losing because they've got health issues and derangements that actually make them lose these high amounts. And that's where the RDI came from in the first place. They came from these like 1,000 milligrams, like a that you need per day. Why? Because it has to do with this nonsense that's been perpetrated from clinical studies and not from proper experimental. There is proper experimental, but it's older, but it's still valid, where they can see, depending on the intake, the levels excreted are far less or far more depending. So absolute nonsense it is. And that's why I don't trust AIs, because they're instructed. I mean, our AI on some of our napping related stuff makes mistakes all the time. And then you have to go, okay, what instructions did I give the damn thing? Okay, it misunderstood this, this, and this. You need to clarify it for it. So the dumb programs, do you understand? They just got really sophisticated ways of pulling a lot of data and manipulating it together and coming up with certain concepts. But if you give it nonsense instructions and nonsense rules, based on those stupid rules, it will basically make out people, historical people, in the wrong skin tone, as we know. That's how stupid it can be. It has no awareness. It's not self-aware. They should have never called it artificial intelligence, because it's not intelligent. All it is a more advanced expert system, because we've got more computer power and more sophisticated algorithms. That's all it is. It mimics things, and it can actually, has behavioral basically coding to behave in a certain way and respond in a certain way. But it's not self-aware of these behaviors, is what I'm saying. It's nonsense. So, yeah, it comes up. It's garbage in, garbage out. It's no different than human studies that are biased and garbage in, garbage out. The same thing. Chat GPT is just an expert system programmed with garbage. Or with biased information that humans have put in there. She talks. So sent Hildra Good from Biggin. She talks about gemstones for promoting health, Western mysticism. Never heard of her. I'll look into her. Very true, Shelley. Very true. As I pointed out much earlier. Anyway, Karen Sarul, what is the mechanism in the body for generating stem cells? Doesn't it? I think people have misunderstood what Sarul products do. Sarul products do not generate or produce stem cells. The body does. The body still needs a good vitamin D status to produce sufficient stem cells and things like that. If you've got poor nutrition, poor, very unhealthy, poor vitamin D status and all that, you're going to be producing less stem cells in the first place. Okay, so let's get that. What it does is it actually has an ability to cleave off a specific protein in order to free up more stem cells from the bone marrow. So what Sarul does, it goes in to the bone marrow, in a sense, and actually forces the body to free up more stem cells than it would normally release. So the body releases a certain amount, and as we get older, we release less and less. So it has more value when you get older to use Sarul. It actually can cut these proteins and actually liberate more of the stem cells. So it's not producing, it's your own stem cells, but more are being liberated into the bloodstream to do their job. So it's actually facilitating the ability to liberate more into the body is the way it works. So it does not encourage the body to make more stem cells, Shelley. What it does is the stem cells already exist. It sort of liberates them. I'm not convinced on the mechanism that it's basically like upregulating and increasing the amount of stem cells in the bone marrow. I think the bone marrow has a certain look. It's a semantic thing. People use this sort of language to simplify the message. I understand, but the mechanism is that it's going in there and actually cleaving off this protein that actually becomes, more pronounced as we get older for whatever reason. I don't know. Basically, if you had a method of basically preventing this protein from doing that, from reducing the amount of stem cells that get liberated, it would be something equivalent to Cerule, but it would work slightly different. It would work rather than cutting, it would work to not have this increase of this protein that actually holds on to the stem cells for dear life, so to speak. So you would have the same rate as a young person, in a sense. What this is doing something equivalent. It's cutting and liberating more stem cells into the body, so they can actually do their job. So that's the sort of way it actually works. Anyway, but the wording, people use the word encourage, Shelley. I do understand that people use those, but the precise nomenclature would be that it's permitting more of these to be liberated from my understanding. That's a long conversation I'm not going to get into. I'm going to have, I will take, I have a different take on this whole idea. This is sort of very much a Protestant sort of view, which is not actually correct in many regards, but that's for another day. If you want, you can leave me a message and I'll give you a J Dyer sort of link to it. But I think we've covered religion far enough, that at least to make it clear to people that it's not some woo-woo thing. It has some strong foundation in science, in physics, where atheism doesn't. It's failed the test. So that's all I'm going to say on that subject matter. This is, after all, on physiology and nutrition and all that. This channel, it doesn't focus on religious. The other channel, which is my opinions, is the one that I will be focusing on geopolitics, religion, and all sorts of things. And people should subscribe to Harry Serpanos Opinions if they want to listen to that sort of me ranting about those sort of subject matters and providing evidence in regards to those issues. Yes. Now, where were we? As a carny lioness, age 64, have you got big nails as well? My first 2-gram dose of about an hour later shot up the tinnitus noise and oxalate dumping by morning. Yes, it can do that. B6 will curb those symptoms, yes. But get a low dose of the active form. That's what you do. Taurine actually reduces tinnitus. I used to have tinnitus and it's gone away. But when you actually, because you do actually get some oxalate even in that part in your ear, not many people know about it. There's different levels of accumulation in different tissue types for different people. Why? No idea. It just is. Maybe some genetics. Maybe it's just lifestyle. I have no idea. But we find that some people will excrete out of the skin, and you get roughness on the skin. And that means it's also going to be out of, your ears and areas like that, eyes and stuff like that. Some people get, from the extremities, the periphery. Other people through the kidneys, like me, I get a lot of kidney stones. Other people through the gut, and they tend to get, let's say, a bit of blood at the bottom, so like you would get from hemorrhoids, that sort of stuff. They, so it really just ravages their gut a bit. It causes a lot of, inflammation in their gut due to their dumping. And under those sort of circumstances, somebody may need to definitely. And the other thing is also, you can actually get now on Amazon pills like citric acid pills, because I know a lot of people don't like taking citric acid like in powder because it's really hard, it's really difficult. But now there are pills that people can take. So you can get citric acid pills you can take to basically where you're not affecting your tooth enamel, and also you're not going to get that really, let's say, excessively sour taste that people don't like. And so you can actually take citric acid, and that will actually help to reduce the problems. And especially if people are dumping through their gut, kidneys and stuff like that, they definitely need the citric acid stuff. But even other people that are dumping from other sources, it's a good idea to have citric acid that can actually break down these crystals and make the whole experience less problematic and less painful for people. Yes. It's good that somebody came up with the pill option rather than the powder. I still have the powder. I haven't used it because I don't have any dumping anymore. But I did go through about 2 years of on and off dumping, which was not pleasant. But that was my fault because in my keto and paleo days, I consumed a lot of, spinach in particular. So I was having in the morning like 150 grams of spinach sometimes with bacon. 150 grams of spinach gives you a lot of oxalate, believe me. It's like well over 1,000 milligrams, and you're only supposed to get 50 per day. So I was just having mega dosing, and that's why I suffered for about 2 years because of the massive intake. A lot of us have gone through that keto, low carb, paleo sort of period, and a lot of us ended up or vegan vegetarianism and consumed a lot of, oxalate-rich plants and accumulated shitloads of stuff in. So I wish I'd known, because it was 2 years of, let's say, a lot of digestive issues dealing with it. Because even if I'd fixed my liver, my gallbladder, and all that was fine. My stomach acidity, no good, no nothing like that. But the oxalate on and off was problematic, and let alone I had a period of like 5 years, four cases of kidney stones, and I had to get the ones that came through the actual stone. The other time, it sort of the other one other time it actually eventually in hospital with putting a lot of fluids through me. Eventually, it passed, and the other two times they would not pass. Once it was like a hook, and the other one had an irregular shape that just got trapped at the top of the the duct that connects the bladder. Forget its name. The bladder to the kidneys, and the other one was at the bottom, and they had to laser it. So because it was too close. If it's in the kidney, they can actually use. I can break it with sort of an ultrasound type thing, but if it's very close to sensitive tissue like that duct that connects, they can't use that method. They have to go in with a laser and laser it to break it up and allow it to pass. So I was twice in, uh, you know, uh, 3 times I was in the hospital. Once it actually passed at home, but it was really what an experience. And then I was just continuously for a couple of years on citric acid plus B6 for that reason to deal with the level of oxalate dumping that I was having, which was just incredible. So I'm just happy that I'm behind. I'm ahead of that, and it's really important because oxalates actually cause more senescence. They age your body. They have to come out. People say, I don't want to go through it. Or do you want to age your body faster and die earlier? Make a choice. There's options with B6 low dose. You don't want high dose as well. It's not good. Low dose, active form, 5P5, P5P, I mean, and things like citric acid tablets, which is much easier for people to consume, and really staying away from, since you're dumping. Some people say to stop the dumping. If you're taking enough citric acid and all that, it usually you don't have a lot of symptoms as much. So I think it's, as long as you're actually breaking down those stones and not damaging the kidneys, and that's where I went. My dosage for taurine went up to 12 grams because it's antifibrotic and it protects the kidneys and stuff like that. And that's what I did to mitigate the damage from the excess dumping. But it was being broken down because of the citric acid plus degraded because of the B6. And that's another reason where people have methylation issues, like me. And I was also taking 2 grams of choline to guarantee that I could undertake methylation without depleting the other, methyl donors that I needed for dealing with the oxalates. So, special case, calcium issues, MTHFR, poor bastard I am. And so that riboflavin, which is very high in animal foods, is the thing that corrects the MTHFR. You don't need to take folate supplementation. You have to support the primary methionine cycle and fix the enzyme function and use choline to spare the others, in particular the B6 when you're dumping. When you're not dumping, you don't need, you just need the amount of choline you get in the food is fine for general healthy people, for normal functioning. What is the most important nutrients to address photosensitivity on a person with dark eyes that is out a lot but still has this issue? Seems nutritional related. It would be nutritional related. A lot of people, when they go on a carnivore diet, they do actually see a lot of this go away. There are things like people that get skin sensitivity and their skin can really inflame just from things like, citric acid, or in particular, the other ones there, what is it? What's the green one? The other one, lime, from lime. Lime, some people from lime in particular, or the skin of a lemon can really, get a lot of sensitivity on their skin. And with UV can actually really, so UV radiation and lime in particular can really be problematic for some people. So they need to keep away from that. And there's other things as well. Certain other foods that some people can react. They vary between people for whatever reason. But what I found is that most people that have got these sort of issues, when they do switch to a carnivore diet, it tends to go away. So, but yeah, keep away from lime. But it's, not a solution. Yes, we'll cover that on the opinions one thoroughly, because it needs to be thoroughly covered. Yes. We tend to be less stressed. That's true. Because there's no reason to be stressed. I mean, if you've got a good relationship with God, and the thing is that we believe that you're saved by grace, but your works are also important, in the sense that if you don't do works, you don't become a better person. You can't basically have a relationship with God to feel the grace of God, because you have to have a relationship in the first place. But in order to have a relationship, you have to do good deeds. So the good deeds actually change your mind, the way you work, the way you think, the way you behave. And that behavior makes you more godlike. And that relationship is then more possible. Yep, exactly. We all do. We're all sinners. We all do. Hard for all of us. It's taken me a lot of my life because I used to be a bit of an ego prick and a know-it-all and whatever. Still am. In terms of, and I still know it all, I believe. Anyway, I don't believe that anymore. You realise the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know much at all and how limited your knowledge is. And that you've come this far, which is just very short in the journey of life. You realise that the limitations and it sort of changes your way. I actually enjoy helping people. It is what I do. I do this for that reason. It's I get controversial, which YouTube censorship usually hammers me now and then. That happens. But I'm not going to change. But for me, it's important. There has to be. You have to give. You know, what's the value? Make money, work, sleep, eat, have sex. I mean, is that it? There has to be more than that. Relationships. I say that. I don't look at my money as the important thing or my investments or whatever. I look at my relationships as the most important thing in my life. And true relationships. Any relationships that are toxic, I just discard them. There's no value there in that regard. It's important to basically foster good relationship with good people, and if you can help other people to find their way, yes, you can only help, as they say, bring a horse to water. It needs to know how to drink or willing to drink. But it's really important that by living more like Christ in a sense, you know how liberating that is? Or even a lot of my friends go, "You seem so unstressed, Harry. You seem so relaxed." And yeah, because stress will kill you, believe me. And it will age your skin and age your body and all that. You just look at people. I'm 58. I actually look better now than I looked when I was in my mid-40s when I had my heart condition. I looked pasty and had more wrinkles than you could poke a stick at and look really bad. I look better now. People are saying, "Are you reversing your age?" My co-workers. So I've improved in a sense, but it's because. But I think it's not. Yeah, the carnivore diet has helped, but a lot of the reversal of the damage or no more accumulation of damage has a lot to do also with better sleep, circadian rhythms, um, earthing, um, occasional fasting a bit here and there, not chronically, the occasional, just to clear things up. My little biohack in the morning with the leucine and citrulline thing, my taurine to reduce oxidative stress in my body, um, doing some, lifting some weights and doing some stuff like that to be 58 and have muscles like that at 58, which isn't too bad at all. So you can see how big they are in comparison to my head and even, my arm. Look how wide that arm is, compared to the wrist. You don't build things like that. And I actually just lift weights on a Wednesday, once a week. That's it. To failure, but that's it. The rest of the week I don't do any weightlifting at all. And for the last couple of weeks I haven't done any. I'm on holidays. But that's my excuse anyway. All laziness. But let me get back to my indiscretions in that regard. But I'm eating properly, and I think that's what's helping me build strong musculoskeletal structure. What's helped my father as well, even though he's old. In the last 15 years, from his mid-70s, he's really strengthened himself and made himself more robust and all that. So it's never too late, is what I'm trying to say, to make a change, a direction in both your faith and in both the way you treat your body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw these up. Every person's opinions. Oh, yes. That sort of stuff. Yes. Unfortunately, take a look who they are. The crazy, radical, atheist left are the ones that are all concerned about these things. Why? Because they like to weaponize them against other people. It's dirty politics, exactly. It's really nasty and all that. People like us, look, I do not hate any of these people. I'd wish them that they could find their way back to God, but I don't hate them at all. They're confused people. They've lost their way. But they definitely hate me because they're in the wrong space and the wrong thinking. And I suspect that if they're in power, they'd probably knock me off, or people like me would be eliminated. Let's put it that way. Where I don't want their elimination, I want them to find their way back to, But yeah, I know a lot of us have got family members who are a bit like this. I do as well. We all do, I believe. And you go, oh, there's that deranged nephew or niece or family friend or whatever. And yeah, I know the feeling. I know the feeling that have got really strange ideas. But unfortunately, these kids have been brainwashed. Past generation have been really brainwashed severely by people that have got really ill plans for all of us. Evil ones. That was the biopsy stuff that we were talking about. And I get to Sandra's question. Yips. People say that genetics do not determine your health. True, because you can actually turn your genes on, turn your genes off. Depending on what you're eating, your lifestyle, you can actually affect, that's called epigenetics. So you have a predisposition, but it doesn't mean your genes aren't your destiny. I agree with that. I had a genetic mutation causing vascular damage. My genetics said I cannot stop or change it. That's wrong. Can you explain why I can't? If you're on a species appropriate diet, you can over time downregulate or switch these things off completely. I'll give you an example. There's the Ashkenazi Jews, and this is the difference between a genetically determined disease and a non-genetic determined lifestyle. See, dementia and Alzheimer's is lifestyle, metabolic disease, okay? You need to change your diet and lifestyle. A genetic disease would be like what the Ashkenazi Jews get, and it creates a dementia-type condition. But if you take high doses of phosphatidylserine, you completely turn those off. Completely turn those off. You basically take consume animal-based fat-soluble vitamins in particular, and you regulate things properly, conditions like this sort of diminish. You have the proper amount of amino acids by eating sufficient protein. The detoxification and some of the pathways that are involved in methylation and whatever else allow the body to work better and reduce the amount of things like homocysteine in the bloodstream and a whole lot of other things. So if you're eating appropriately for your species, then things function properly and the gene expression happens properly. Remember, all these molecules can actually have direct gene expression and effects on the genes, turning things off, turning things on, those sort of what they call the codons. So, so this argument that your genes are your destiny is complete and utter nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. But, because even in this condition, there is what I call the matrix metalloproteinases that are involved. I can't remember which ones. Maybe 9 and 2. Oh, let me just check. MMP9. So, yeah, that's right. It's MMP9, that's right. Matrix metalloproteinase 9, a major inflammatory mediator that can be involved in vascular pathology, vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Yeah, and that's right. Yeah. The absence of the interferon gamma. Again, taurine helps with, and also like lactoferrin can also influence that pathway. Again, see how the diet can actually have a positive effect on the gene expression and the way these things work. Again, it's, it does say at the bottom, AMP activation, elastogenesis activates MMP2 and 9 can, yeah. So, yeah, MMP2, MMP9 are very much involved in the collagen structures throughout the body. So in the, in whatever structures in the body, whether vasculatory, skin, gut, you name it, the liver will express these if there's inflammation or there is some derangement or expression. And then if you've got, you've got to get your vitamin D up into the therapeutic range, which is in the millimole. Let me just bring up my calculator. Oh, friggin' hell, come over here, calculator. 175 divided by 2.5. So it's between in the sort of millimole. So in the European system, it's 175. In the American system, just to make it easy for people, it's 70. Okay. So you either have to get it to the American system of 70 or the European of 175 or slightly above in order to properly regulate MMP2 and MMP9. The other thing is you have to have sufficient retinol in your system because that's, the other cofactor, the critical one. You do need some K2, but most people get enough K2 from eggs and dairy and stuff from, things like that. And most other animal foods, they'll get something from the fat in terms, but the real critical ones is to make sure that you're getting at least 3,000 IUs. And you can actually go and check my, the video, and you can very easily get that from a couple of eggs and some, and some dairy fat. You can get more than enough. Let's just type. Yeah, I'll bring it up. Oh, don't do that. let me just find it and I'll stick it for all the foods and all that so you can actually have an idea. Just select the right one. No, we don't need that. We just need that one. Okay. Get rid of that. Go away. Friggin' why is it doing this? You can see 100 grams give you, so you need, oh, that's right, they've got, that's right, I need the IU. So that's that one. Where's the other one? IU. That's what we need. That's annoying. Why they've got it down there? They don't have it in alphabetical order. Okay, why didn't that work? No. Okay, now it's working. Freaking hell. So, present. Oh, God. Sorry, bear with me for a sec because we're having a seniors moment at the moment. Trying to get this to bloody share properly. God. Okay. Big key. Oh, why is it doing it? Yes. Ah, there it is. Okay. Apply. So, animal foods, 100 grams, which is 3.53 ounces. So 3.5 ounces plus. And obviously, we don't want to really be consuming a lot of liver because you're getting massive amounts. Plus, you're also potentially getting a lot of copper and stuff like that. So we'll go down here so you can see 100 grams of ghee. So if you're cooking ghee, you'll get plenty, like the Indians do in the subcontinent. It's probably the only healthy thing they do some of them. Now they do seed oils, 85% of them. That's why they're all sick. But when they were doing ghee, clarified butter, where you take out the proteins and the sugars, then yes, 100 grams, you cook all day with that, you'll get enough retinol in that regard. So 3,000 IUs is the thing. I'm trying to think. It's point 0.3, isn't it? Approximately. The conversion, 0.3 to get it. So anyway, so that will give you the total, including the carotenoids. This is only giving you retinol, how much retinol is in there. So obviously there's a bit extra carotenoids because it's 0.3 when you're dividing the divisor. So between micrograms, that's mcg, means micrograms. Sometimes you may see it like the Greek m, the small m and a g. It means the same. Scientists use the small m and a g, the Greek type tradition. See, tuna, 100 grams of tuna, 2,000 IUs. Hard cheese, 100 grams of hard cheese, 1,700. It's very easy. Eggs, it's 100 grams of egg yolks if you're going to have that. So if you go down to where was it? Fish, a very good source as well. Fried eggs, one of my favourite. So you can see 100 grams, that's 2 eggs. So your 6 eggs would be 3 times that. So 6 eggs, 7, 8, 7. And 6 eggs will give you 2,361 IUs. You're nearly at 3,000. So a bit of cheese and all that, I think it's pretty much 4 eggs, some cheese and a few other things, and you pretty much get to 3,000 IUs very, very easily to cover your needs for the requirements of your retinol requirements to deal with the regulation of MMPs. So, anyways, okay. Hold on, what is it doing? Click, remove. Didn't want to remove itself. Let's get rid of that. I'll copy that into the live stream. There you go. So, yeah, so it's not difficult to get. Sufficient retinol. The vitamin D is the other thing. I can't tell you. You've got to go and check yourself and see what your vitamin D status is. You should be getting enough of the other fat-soluble vitamins very easily. The K2 is a critical one, but you should be getting enough for those. I'd be surprised if you weren't. Yep. That was with the previous one we were talking about. Yep. A few other things, comments. People about their computers. Richard and his computers. And, oh yes, ha ha ha. AI is pretty good. Used to probe what the normal people know. Exactly. That's exactly it, Johnny Wong. You actually nailed it. That's exactly, I should have said that. You absolutely nailed it. That is exactly what it is. The general public, that the military use a different AI. They've got people that determine real information and they put that real information in to get credible analysis. This is just for the general public to basically, with the existing narratives, existing belief systems, it's a bit like, you go and do blood tests and they are within the normal range. Well, what's the normal range? What every sick person is in, so it's just nonsense. Very well stated, Johnny. See you. I've always said my subscribers are some of the smartest people. They actually want to learn real smart stuff. That's why I'm happy. I'd rather have less and quality than more, and people that can't make sense of the world. Oh, the oxalate thing, yes. Yes, I did the almond as well. Yeah, I did almonds as well. I actually even used almond flour to basically for like my low carb pizza. It was the pizza base. It was the almond flour. God, the shit that I put in my body through that period. Yes. Yep. Yeah, look, over time, things improve. When it comes to eyes, also, Johnny, it's important that there are two things important. And I think because taurine is involved in DHA in the eye, the highest concentration of taurine, remember, fish are the best source, the highest concentration of taurine is not in the heart, it's in the eyes. Because they sustain due to UV higher oxidative damage. But you need UV because it is important for circadian rhythms and the internal clocks. So not good to basically always cover your eyes when you're outdoors. I do for glaring when it's really severe. And if people ever see me, I'm always popping the glasses down when it's really glary because I've got, having green or blue eyes tends to allow more through, and it's really uncomfortable. You get a lot of glare. So I need my sunnies for that purpose, but I also realise I need to get some of that light exposure because it's important. So when I'm in areas where there's less, where it's not as glary, I just pop my glasses on my head, and so that's what I do. But because I know I have to, I'm combating glareness to that. But, when you've got blue eyes or like my father or green eyes like me, you basically actually can see better at night. So you get better night vision. So I can understand why Europeans and all that and living in those sort of colder climates and, to be able to see somebody from a distance at night who may be coming with a axe, potentially. That must have been in regards to my retinol thing. Maybe. Don't know. Suboptimal is that what you've got? I've just given you a link. If you've got suboptimal vitamin A, there you go, your link to make sure that you're getting the right foods and all that. So I preempted you, Todd. Yeah, they are. They are very, very big. And so is DHA, especially in blue light, because we're exposed to a lot of blue light and we end up losing a lot of DHA in the eye. So, yep, very, very important. Yep. Rosita, cod liver oil. You're going to use any, that's the only brand. Yeah. There it is. That's the only one that Harry approves of. Or buy cod liver. I've actually bought an Icelandic cod liver. I actually threw the tin out. Well, next time I'll put it on screen next time because I threw it out, so I don't have a copy of it. So, but Hello Kitty, my next door neighbour, she put me on it. She's one of my subscribers. You've probably seen it sometime on the channel. So there's an Icelandic version. I'm trying to remember the damn name now. I just can't remember it. Anyway, I've only consumed it once. I will buy it again. It's nice. It's just with its own oil from the fish and its own, there's no additives into the damn thing. And Iceland actually has good laws on, Scandinavian country has really good health laws in terms of. Yeah. Luckily, I actually found it because mostly on the web, I know it sells for about $7 or whatever, the cod liver, but the local store here, the IGA store, I get it for $5.50, which is really good. It's really good priced. Yes, how are you, mate? The feral grandma. Hello to you as well. Glad you're here, and happy New Year to you as well. You're welcome. Yes, we all have to do our things. Scrub. Yeah, they can aggravate the condition and certain deficiencies. True. Yeah, a number of B vitamins. That's true. That was the retinol stuff. Yips. Well, through my mum is eating mostly meat. That's good. Her eyes are very sensitive to daylight. She requires sunglasses to drive. So I think it's likely plant compounds that are suspect. Yep. Um, is she taking also taurine? I hope she's taking taurine because that will help improve. And the DHA, it's really important for eye health. DHA and taurine, those two, especially for this sort of condition. And just generally being on a carnivorous diet is important. And over time, things will improve, like all of us. It's you're welcome, Sandra. Diplomats. That's was the cod liver I've bought. Okay, I think it's a different brand. I think it's a different brand. Anyway, we're at 3 hours. I'm gonna call it quits. I need to go and do a few things. I realise I need to go and do a bit of shopping, and then yeah, get certain other things sorted. Need to clean out a room, and then I've got in 4.5 hours from now, I've got another live stream. That's probably going to go for longer. Sorry for the people in stateside. It's just going to go longer because we're going to take it all the way from 6 o'clock, 6 hours. It's going to be a 6-hour marathon all the way up to, you guessed it, to 12 o'clock. Australian Eastern Standard Time daylight savings, which is what I am. So those people in Queensland who are basically an hour behind, tough luck. Bad luck. I'm not going to stay an extra hour to say to do the fireworks for you. You're probably better off than the rest of us in daylight savings because not having daylight savings is actually healthier. That's been shown with a lot of populations that live in daylight savings sort of zones tend to have more health issues slightly. So the circadian mismatch. When I put my glasses on and do all these sort of things, I actually I always remind myself the hours and make the adjustments to the earlier hour. So even my food intake shifts to what really is the time, not 11 o'clock, because that's really not really 11 o'clock. It's still 10 o'clock. So I have to go to 12 when it's daylight saving. So I still try and keep to the same rhythm as in winter, to avoid, those sort of things, to be in sync with what I should be. You're welcome, Richard. Thanks for your time again, Harry. You're welcome. Happy New Year to all of you lovely people. Please take care during the New Year celebrations and come back better, not worse. I know what you mean. Yes. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot. Appreciate you popping around. Wishing myself and others Happy New Year. I do wish from myself Happy New Year to you all, to you and your families and loved ones. And I hope that next year, 2025, is going to be, let's say, a slightly more peaceful year, and maybe some of the crazies, crazy agendas are pushed back on by more people, that more people wake up, is what I'm trying to say, that we have a bit of an awakening of more people to push back on all the crazy stuff that's been pushed on us in the last couple of years. Thanks, Lukey. Yep, and you too. Stay well. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care, and please hit the like button if you haven't. Helps the algorithm. Yes, it helps Mr. Al Gore. Even if you hate me, just click the down button. I'll take anything at this stage. So, Harry, how low is the Australian dollar going to go? Hard to say. If they continue money printing, maybe lower. Has gone lower in the past. Has gone because the US, with some of its policies, is dragging the US dollar up. It has the potential of going, if really bad policies are implemented in this country, especially with the socialists are in power, there's a potential for this, all the way down to 47, potentially. I'm not saying it's going to go there, trading are, but, if these people continue, because you're going to have more friction with China, and that could also affect the commodities trade of Australia. So affecting the commodities trade, you're going to have also more production of energy. You've got Argentina ramping up production of fossil fuels. You've got Trump that will be doing it, a number of other countries that will bring down the cost of energy. And obviously that will improve the US dollar's position against other currencies. And probably because of some of his policies will drag money back, which will be deflationary for the US, but inflationary for the rest of the world as well. So that's another factor. So, there's going to be a fine-tuning whether, most governments are going to basically ignore the inflation and print initially, which is going to exacerbate the sort of the dollar, the loss in value of the dollar in comparison to US dollar. But on the other hand, if they go the other way, they'll force this economy, with some of the policies that they've been doing, they'll force this economy definitely into recession. So some economies in Europe and in Asia have already shifted. I mean, I think Turkey recently had 2 quarters of negative growth of 0.2. So they're already have slid in recession, and a number of other economies around the world are either about to slide or in the cusp of it, in the early stages. So there's going to be a lot of economic uncertainty for at least 6 months until, let's say, all the negotiating argy-bargy happens. There's going to be a year of a lot of global realignments, negotiations, and friction, a lot of friction. Friction is not always good for the world economy, specifically if the US is winning more. That will actually amplify the effects in the periphery for the centre. So, but that doesn't mean the US is not out of the because it'll take a decade, 5, 6, 7 years to actually get quite ahead in terms of production of fossil fuels in order to bring down the inflation bogeyman inside the economy. So it may be a short-lived 12-month, sort of rally, and then it may fall off the cliff, depending on how it all plays out. So this is going to be a very, as you said, exciting times ahead. Very interesting time for the world economy. In which way it's going to go. There's going to be a lot of you're going to see a lot of fluctuations in a lot of the markets. Pretty much a lot of people out there are going to be scratching their head and saying, what's going to happen next? That's the sort of environment we're going to find ourselves in that regard. Paul, you're late, mate. You're late. Hope to see you on the Zoom at some stage again. Mate. Anyway, take care, all of yous. And yes. Very exciting times ahead, definitely. That's one way of describing it. Definitely very exciting times. So take care, all of yous, and I will see you in the new year. Thanks. And the ones that are not on stateside that are heading for bed, who are the local Aussies, I will see you in 4 hours and 20 minutes, and I better get my ass out of here so I can go and do some shopping because time flies when you're having fun, as they say. See you all.